Hello there, YouTube. Corey again, and this time I'm doing something different. I am about to sew the front half of my Green Lantern costume. So as you guys can see right here, this piece is the whole front half, and then the pieces under it over here, slightly off camera, is the arms for both the left and the right, and the legs for both left and the right for the front. I have the back pieces, the two back sides, the both left and right side, as well as the left and right side of the arms and the legs behind me, again off camera. So like I said, this is a little something different. You guys can like see the shadow of my phone that I'm using. I'm using a pretty good tripod. I believe I made a video of the camera equipment that I had ordered off of Amazon a while ago. Unfortunately, the camera that I got, I thought it was the right camera, but the resolution wasn't really that good to me, so I opted to not use the camera. I'm gonna probably like try and resell that at some point, but purpose of this video is to show you guys how I go about, or how I personally go about my sewing. So after many times of watching videos on YouTube on how to sew, I tried different methods. Some people would say, like leave a 1/4 inch of fabric for seam allowance around your template or around your pattern. That way you have extra material that you can kind of work with. So right now that's what I'm trying to do. I made the mistake of cutting on the line on my Star Wars costume, and in doing that I noticed that some of the seams, they weren't really popping, but they were stretching to the point where like you could see the thread a little bit, and I wasn't really liking that look. So as you guys can see here, sorry to show you just like the pelvic area of the costume, but just to give you a general idea, here's where the pattern was, and you see that I have more than enough room for seam allowance, and that will basically allow me to make any alterations that I need to make, be it it's a little too tight, so I need to like undo the stitching and move out a little more, or if it's too loose I can undo the stitching and move in a little more and still have a lot more room to work with. Again, I am a novice at this, so reading or trying to read the instructions that came with the template itself, the way my brain works is just I could not understand what was being said. I really couldn't understand what was being said. Again, not really having any experience in this. I honestly think I do fairly well for having no experience. Like, as you can see on the front, the seams is pretty good. It's not too bad. This part right here though is just gonna, right here, that little bit is just gonna bug the hell out of me. It's ridiculous. Like, even when it's being stretched, it's still, you can't really see it on camera, but trust me, it's quite annoying. Not a little, it's quite annoying. But again, I think I did fairly well, so I did this part here was a little tricky, trying to get the fold, or trying to get the sew or the seam on one side straight and then having to like kind of fold it in on itself to get the second seam. That was a bit tricky, but I think I pulled it off fairly well. And on top of that, like everything kind of lined up. I don't know if you can see this line that's like right here on the right side of my thumb, but that pretty much lines up going all the way down. Like this black line on the green, if you can see, that lines up with this white line. It doesn't line up with this white line on this piece of fabric, but that's totally fine. I can work with that. But yeah, so I honestly don't know how long this particular video is going to be. With my previous video, I tried editing it and cropping out some sections, so I only cropped out one section and it wasn't bad, I guess. But yeah, so with this video I am going to again sew the front portion of my costume. And just to reiterate, I have no idea how long this video is going to be. Hopefully it catches everything that I wanted to do. If it doesn't, then this will just be a two-parter. So yeah, right now I'm going to start by pinning. I've also labeled the parts too. So this says pants front flip. So this is basically the right leg. This is the front of the right leg. Then I have the front of the left leg right here, and then the same with the arms, front arms, and then front arms reverse, you know, the reverse side being left or right. So yes, I am going to start now by pinning the positive, or the right side. This is the right side, you can tell. The wrong side has like this, I really don't know how to describe it. It just looks like one piece with just sections, or like the grid, the honeycomb grid that you can see. And it's just one texture. But on the right side, you can tell that the honeycomb stands out a lot more. Like you can see the indentation between each shape and how it just separates everything. And this looks really, really good. So I am seriously stoked to see this whole costume come together. And hopefully you guys are too. So with that being said, let me shut up and get to pinning. All right, got my clothespins. Now I just need to alrighty. And boom. So I'm just, right now, I'm going to pin the corners together. That way it'll be easier for me to kind of find the centering and pretty much get it all evened out. This process alone, at least for me, takes a while because I like to make sure that everything lines up properly. That way I get a nice clean stitch. So sometimes you'll see me like unpin and repin the same spot multiple times. Again, it's just to make sure that I get the right spacing or the right positioning. also you got to be careful, because if you're not paying attention to where you pinned, you will get stuck. So right here on the template was a notch. There was a notch on the template. So I just basically transferred that over to the fabric. And like how I mentioned previously, I cut at the edge of the template on my previous costume. I also cut out the notches too. So with this time, instead of doing that, I pretty much just transferred where the notches were onto the fabric, which honestly I think that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm just going to pin through one end and then find the same notch on the opposite end. That way I know these two spots belong together. Try and line it up. So go through and through. Boom. Now I have those two spots lined up. And now I can basically just work in between the two spaces. And basically, if I need to stretch out one side so that both sides lay properly and will stitch clean, I guess you could say, stitch clean. Yeah. Forgive me if I'm using wrong terminology. Again, I have an idea of what I'm doing, but I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. I would have liked to have this be a live stream, but I have a good friend of mine saying that he wouldn't be sure if he would actually be able to catch the live stream, and if I could I just do a recording instead. So I don't know if doing a live stream automatically records your video, but you know, I would like for him to see my videos. So here I am recording. I would also like to have some music, but sadly, the device that I'm using to record is also the device that I use for my music, so I can't do both. Maybe in another video, though. But yeah, like, what projects are you guys working on? Do you have any projects? Do you have any ideas for projects? You know, you guys should definitely put those ideas down in the comments below. Like I say every time, your comments are definitely appreciated and wanted. I would love some feedback from you guys. Okay, so this side is almost done. I would say maybe about one or two more pins. Alrighty, so yeah, this side should be just about done. Now I can focus on this side. Now, here's where it kind of gets tricky, because seeing as on the leg, it kind of has like this really, really deep curve going in one direction, and then there's another deep curve going in the opposite direction. So now, seeing as one fabric has more material or more space than the other, I basically have to stretch out the shorter piece and basically pin it all together. That way it kind of, the longer piece kind of clumps up in a way, but it would still, I would still be able to like get it to sew properly. It's just one of those things, I guess, that is unavoidable with like stretchy kind of material. Damn, now I need clamps. This is when I need big clamps. I'll make it work. Hopefully I can do that without sticking myself, because that's never fun when you stick yourself. Okay, so see, this is a part where I need to kind of undo one to redo it. Okay. And my apologies if I end up getting quiet every now and again. That's just me concentrating. You know, I've been telling a lot of people about this costume, including you guys. So there's quite a few people that are very excited to see this costume. And even though I'm the one that's making it, I am also one of those people that's excited to see this costume. So, You know, it's slight pressure, I guess, to basically deliver. But yeah, don't think that I forgot about you guys, because of course I didn't. I'm just concentrating very hard. I just want to make sure I get this right, because having to undo something that you spent minutes, hopefully not hours. Well, it's going to take hours, but having to undo something that you spent hours on is not only tedious, but in my opinion is kind of soul crushing. You know, like, nobody's perfect. Rarely do we ever do something the first time and it comes out perfect, you know. So I'm just trying to get this as close to perfect as I can on my first go. So if you can't tell already, the reverse side, the inside of the leg towards that curve, as you guys can see, has bunched up considerably as opposed to the back side. All right, so that may affect how it works overall. You know, it could look really good, it could look really bad. I guess that all depends on how I sew it. So yeah, you know, there's only one way to find out, and we are about to find out together. So just making sure everything lines up before I take it to the sewing machine. And yeah, that lines up for the most part. I guess that could be a way. That was just something that I tried just now. I don't know if you guys noticed what I did, but if you guys are pinning together your edges, and you just want to make sure everything lines up, if you have everything pinned together already and you're not sure, you can just take an extra pin. Here it is. You can just take an extra pin and pinch in one spot that looks like it lines up on both sides. So like this line right here, I pretty much took my forefinger and then my thumb and pinched. It felt like it lined up. So then I took an extra pin, went through one side of the line, and it's pretty close on there. It's pretty close on there. Right there. So it goes through this line, and it's just about going through this line also. So it's like, yeah, it's lined up pretty well. All right, so we close this and then just tuck it in, get it out the way. Now, when sewing your seams together, you want to make sure that like you lock it, I guess. So you start at the corner, you start at a corner or wherever you're going to start at. First you turn your sewing machine on. And now I need to get myself situated. Yeah, that should be okay. Alrighty, so now just need to find where you're gonna start at. and right here is where I start. So you lower your presser foot onto your fabric, making sure all excess fabric that is not a part of what you are trying to sew is out of the way. You don't want to accidentally sew the chest to where your leg is going to be. So move everything else out the way. What I like to do, I kind of like to, you know, like baby grip the excess underneath. That way, if I need to like hold the outside excess material, I can have enough material on the inside to pull to straighten out that line. So you lower the needle into your fabric. Now what I like to do, I like to lower this bar right here. This bar allows me to, as the material is being fed into the sewing machine, it's going this way. It's going out this way. Ow. So with this, what this bar right here allows my machine to do, it basically puts it in reverse. So it'll go this way, stop at one section, and then like put a few stitches in, and then it'll start to feed back out this way. And then I push it in to make to have my machine register, okay, I need to go back this way. And that basically locks that stitch. And yeah, you would want to do that for the beginning of your stitch and the end of your stitch. That way you lock it all in place and you don't have to worry about anything coming undone unless somewhere along where you're sewing happens to pop. Hopefully that doesn't happen. So we start with a few stitches, push the lever, let it go, and then come back, push the lever back in. Now, seeing as this is a long stretch, I can just push it back up for now. I don't need that at the moment. Again, move all excess material out of the way. It'd be easier, you can just fold it over. Don't have to worry about that. Or you can just have it out the way. That way you can have everything lie as flat as you can so you can see everything better. Let's move that up there. And then just go about your stitch. Now just make sure that when you're stitching, you follow the line on your pattern. You don't want to have zigzags and just like spikes in your stitch, and then you have to, you know, go back in and clean it up, and it's just gonna, it's too much of a hassle. It doesn't look pretty, you know. So again, trial and error, you learn as you go. And yeah, if you need any tips, there's always other videos on YouTube that have way better tips than me. Again, I am fresh at this, or should I say extremely rusty. So yeah, if anything, practice on gloves. That's what I did. You know, just take a template, just trace your hand on a piece of poster board and just make gloves for weeks if you have to, months if you have to. That way you get really good at, you know, doing corners and then like the really tight spaces, and then all the way down into the webbing area, and then come back out, you know, get all that spacing right. It's a lot easier, in my opinion, it's a lot easier to learn how to sew by sewing gloves. All right. Now I'm just gonna speed up a little more. Okay, now here's a problem. It's starting to bunch up right in here, so I can see that the markings on the pattern is starting to overlap and it's starting to come off center. So what I do at this point, I pretty much slowly lower the needle into the fabric, and then I leave it in there and I raise the presser foot and I try and straighten it out. But I do believe where it entered this time is kind of keeping that overlap. So that's just something that I'm gonna have to deal with. So I lower my presser foot and I just continue on. And I like to check every now and again. I like to check every now and again if everything is out of the way, if everything is lining up right on the underside, because the underside is just as important as the top side. Okay, so everything seems to be lining up pretty well. And now I can get back. All right, so now as I near the end of this particular stitch, this is when I stop and I bring down this lever again, so that when I get closer to the edge, I can just push, sew back out, push it in, and then sew back in, okay? And then push. And that. So this piece is use a seam ripper, seeing as my scissors are all the way off in the distance. And I'm a little too tired to get up right now. Okay, so